Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores a goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Steffen Melendez, and I'm going to be bringing you the latest and greatest in soccer news from around the world. Welcome back, everyone, to your favorite soccer podcast. I'm back and here to talk to you guys about a lot of international football we got going on. Domestic football is on a halt, so obviously we're not going to be talking about that today. We got FIFA World Cup qualifiers, we got International Friendlies, we even got Under-23 CONCACAF Men's Olympic qualifying going on, and we're going to be getting into all of that with you today. And I'm actually going to be very excited to talk about the United States men's national team with you guys today, because we got some very good games from them this past week. And I just can't wait to talk about it, because we got this new generation coming in. We got a lot of exciting players playing for us now. And there's actually a lot of great momentum for the United States men's national team. Something that we haven't had in, I would like to say, ever. You know, there's never been this much talent, this much, excitement. But regardless, I'm going to be getting into that in my segment. Let's just do a little rundown what we're going to be discussing in today's show. For the first segment, I'm going to be talking about those USA International Friendlies. I want to get into those games, talk about what I saw, what who stood out, what lineups we got, how those games went down. I'm going to be breaking it all down for you guys, and how good they're looking right now. And second segment, we're going to be talking about the FIFA World Cup qualifiers. We had a lot of games in Europe being played, and we're going to be talking about all of those. All the games that went down. I mean, as many as I possibly can in the time we got here. And then third, I want to talk about the Under-23 CONCACAF Men's Olympic qualifying. The United States men's national team, it looks like they might not even be qualifying, which obviously sucks. You never want to see that. But we got a lot of other teams that have been playing and playing well. So we're going to be talking about all that as well. And I'm going to be continuing my top 10 series of, the best players on each Premier League team. This time I'm going to be talking about Chelsea. It's been a very weird season for Chelsea, a lot of high expectations for them, and there was a lot of players that played well, some that maybe didn't live up to those expectations that people were expecting, but still had very solid seasons. So we're going to be getting into that in that final segment. But yeah, let's just get started with the USA International Friendlies. We had two games that were played. The first one was against Jamaica. The second was against Northern Ireland. USA were able to defeat both of them and look pretty solid in both games. Like, they never looked to be, threatened by the other team. I know Jamaica are going through a financial crisis with the whole 2018 World Cup qualifying that they were able to achieve. And that's why a lot of their top players were not able to be at that game. But regardless, you still need the USA men's national team to step up and, take hold of those games, because regardless of it being friendlies or not, these are all games that are setting up a much bigger summer. We got Gold Cup, we got World Cup qualifiers, we got the CONCACAF, I forgot what it was called, Nations League, because we got a lot going on, and this is all setting up for that huge summer. We need to get these players playing a lot of games together. We need them playing well. We need that chemistry on the field. That is very, very important as we get closer and closer to those big games. So you go into this Jamaica game, and you're hoping, obviously, number one, for a victory. Number two, for a lot of chemistry that you can see on the field, because of course, this team has been playing very well with these, I'm going to include these 2 wins against Jamaica and Northern Ireland, that they now, in their last 10 games or 9 games, they have 8 wins and 1 draw. They haven't lost a game. They've been doing really, really well, and that's what you love to see. You want to see this team progress. You want to see them get better and better, and especially with all the young talent that they have on their team. You look at the lineup, and I don't want to, I don't even know the number. I'm talking about average age, but you're looking at somewhere around maybe 26, 25. And the last time a USA national team had, that young of an average, because for sure they were always relying on veteran players, like back, the last generation, we were always relying on guys like Clint Dempsey, who were in their, early 30s, Michael Bradley, who else? Who was it? I know John Brooks was kind of already starting to play, at the last World Cup, and, well, obviously not 2018. We all know what happened there. But the one before that, he kind of, played a big role there. But they were relying, Jermaine Jones, that was another guy I was trying to remember. So they were relying on a lot of older players because that's what we needed to do. We needed all those younger players weren't ready. They weren't, good enough to really be on the national team. Now we have so much talent that is, I don't want to say they're ready to, take on the best competition that international football has to offer, but they are certainly at that skill level that you can certainly put them out here, give them senior team football action, and expect big things from them. And that's what we got here. You play Jamaica, who, again, like I said, they weren't playing their best players. So obviously, you have to temper your expectations with, the win that they got here. Though it was a 4-1 victory. It was a dominant victory. And, man, the one guy that really just continues to wow me every time I see him, even though I was a bit worried about him, before his really good run of form of late, was Serginho Dest. I saw him, I saw him at Barcelona, and I started to see him lose some confidence because, the team wasn't doing well. He wasn't playing well. He was beat by Mbappe in that Champions League round of 16 first leg. And you can just see that he was losing it a bit, but he's still a very young player. I never lost, my trust in him because I knew, again, he's a very young player. You look at his age, I believe he's like 20 years old. So you obviously can't expect the world from him, but he certainly has that world-class skill and world-class potential because, man, did he show up in this game against Jamaica. I mean, and the best part about him is his versatility. You usually see him consistently on that right side, but with Reggie Cannon being put into the lineup, first, and before I start going into the game, I'll give you guys the lineup of what we saw in this game. So you got our number one goalkeeper, Zach Steffen. That's the guy that we're going to be riding with between the sticks because, he's playing for Manchester City. He's been showing great stuff over the past few years, and he's going to be the guy. So you got Zach Steffen between the sticks. You got John Brooks, who's always going to be our number one defender. Of course, they're going to play him in this game because after this first game, he had to go back to Germany because of some, I think it's like COVID rules that the Bundesliga set in place that they can't be gone for a certain amount of time. I'm not 100% sure on that. But you got John Brooks in this first game, and then he was partnered with Aaron Long. And I like that option. I know that's always the biggest question, who's going to be lined up with John Brooks, because that's probably the biggest question mark, maybe aside from that starting striker position. And I like the option. I like Aaron Long. He's a strong player. He's very smart with in certain situations, and he showed a lot of stuff in the MLS. So I like that pairing there with John Brooks and Aaron Long. And then you got, of course, Reggie Cannon on the right. You got Serginho Dest on the left, because you can play that man literally wherever you want on that back line. You can even play him up if you needed to, but of course he works best as a fullback. The midfield was the one that was kind of makeshift. Leggett, the guy that's kind of Berhalter's favorite, kind of being called up every single time. And I have a feeling that Leggett's going to be that Michael Bradley type of player, that veteran that you're probably going to see on a World Cup squad because, he's been called up, so often, and he's provided, a lot of consistency. He can, manage the midfield. He's a very smart player, knows where to be at the right times. And spoiler alert, he got a brace in this game, a late brace, but a brace nonetheless. And that's what you love from Leggett. He's not going to wow you with his skills, but he's so consistent and just, he does what he needs to do when he's out there. You had the senior debut of Yunus Musa, at least I guess his debut as a full-time USA international since he officially committed to us, which is great news. I mean, Yunus Musa is an amazing talent, and there was always a lot of talk about whether he was going to go to England, and he had 2 other countries that he could have chosen. I believe Ghana was one of them, but he ended up choosing the United States. That is great news, and just shows the trajectory that we are heading towards. So you got him, and then you got Kellen Acosta. That was kind of like one that I'm not really sure why he's there. He's a veteran, someone that had a lot of potential early on, never really lived up to it. But, at the same time, you got a lot of midfielders that aren't here at the moment. Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, who would usually fill those spots. Jet would be a nice backup player, but, I mean, Yunus Musa can certainly play his way into that spot. I just think he's too young, to really be in that spot at the moment. And then up top, you have the front 3 that we're hoping to see, for years to come. You got Christian Pulisic on the left wing. You got Gio Reyna on the right wing. And then you got Joshua Sargent up top as your number 9. Now, those are the 3 that you want to see there if you're a USMNT fan. No doubt about it. You want to see those 3 playing together as much as humanly possible, and you want to see them play well, because that is the future. Obviously anybody can step up in that number 9 spot. Those winger spots are locked. I mean, Pulisic and Reyna are world-class talents. Sargent's the one that really needs to step up and show that he's ready for this challenge. And, I mean, in this game, I liked it. He obviously, you want to see him score, a crazy amount of goals. He's in great form in the Bundesliga, but he set up the second goal for Brendan Aronson, Brendan Aronson, my apologies, in the 52nd minute. He came on for Pulisic in the second half, and I mean, just start talking about this game. I mean, it kind of felt like it was the United States from the very beginning. Just the quality that guys like Serginho Dest shows, as the game was progressing. I mean, that one move that he made to kind of get by that was like 3 or 4 different Jamaican defenders, and then to do a nice little flick, like back heel pass to Christian Pulisic on the run. It was just beautiful to watch, and it almost ended up with a Sargent goal. But I mean, a Jamaica defender, I forgot which one it was. I believe it was Pinnock that was able to. No, it was Bell, who made a very nice sliding tackle to disrupt that play. But still, it was just, you could see what this team is going to look like. A very fast-paced team that has a lot of skill, a lot of technical skill that can beat you in a number of ways. And that lineup, I would love, even though I know there's better options, not better options, but there's more options at the left back position than there are at the right back position. But that connection between Dest and Pulisic just got better and better as the game continued. And I would just love to see that in, a World Cup setting, because those guys can play. And Serginho Dest showed you, especially with that goal, his first international goal for the United States in the 34th minute, that he can do it in a number of ways. He can set players up. He can get by a number of defenders with his incredible dribbling and pace. And he's got the ridiculous finishing to score in tight situations. Like, he was able to get by a couple players, kind of cut across to the middle of the field, outside the box, and just place it in the perfect spot where the Jamaican goalkeeper just couldn't touch it, to make it 1-0 for the United States. And they held on to that lead going into the half and played well throughout the rest of that first half. Of course, Pulisic comes off at halftime. You bring in Brendan Aronson, and he scores in the 52nd minute, 7 minutes after coming on. And that's another player that you want to continue to see improve. I feel like he has a lot of versatility, but usually you're probably going to end up seeing him as a winger. But I feel like he can also play as a midfielder, because he has great technical skills, great ability to control the ball. And, maybe Berhalter sees him as a center attacking midfielder, someone that you can put ahead of players like Weston McKennie and Tyler Adams. But obviously, Aronson needs a little more time to develop. That's why he's not, getting all that starting minutes. But still, He played great when he was on. He was in the right moments. He's actually the one that started that attack with him and Sargent. He headed the ball to Sargent. And then, man, the control that Sargent had of the ball in the box, that's one of the best things about Sargent, his ability to hold on to the ball and make the right decisions with it. That's what he does so well at Werder Bremen in the Bundesliga, and he did that here. But, of course, you want to see him score goals. But, again, the fact that that's not all he does. He can do other things. But you want to see those goals. That's the one thing you want to see from Sargent to be able to hold on to that number 9 spot. A guy that can just get into the spot and finish plays. That's the thing. But regardless, Sargent to be able to, juke his defender, get him off him, and then find a perfect pass to Aronson for that second goal of the game was a beautiful play. Of course, Jamaica ends up scoring in the 70th minute. Really very, very nice goal from Jamal Lowe, but I feel like that USA defense could have done a little bit more to, change, just that, what happened there. I feel like a lot of things could have gone differently there. They could have attacked it a bit different, but they just didn't. They waited a bit too long. I think it was Reggie Cannon that had the defender who found Lowe open. He was kind of hesitating. He wasn't attacking him, making him bring it back. He just let him hold on to the ball just outside the box. So, but regardless, it was a very nice finish. So it's not like it was an easy goal for Jamaica to get. But regardless, USA were able to pull away with a brace from Sebastian Lletget late in the game, an 83rd minute goal and a 90th minute goal that put this game away. And you'd love to see it because, again, like I've said about Lletget when I was first talking about him, he knows how to get into the right positions. He finishes plays off. He controls the midfield. He does a lot of things well. He doesn't do any one thing great. He does a lot of things very well. And to have that option, a guy that you could play in multiple positions, someone that, is smart with the ball, is always a great option to have for Berhalter and this men's national team. Now, you also got to think about the plays that were, that set up those goals, and a lot of that had to do with, I believe Reggie Cannon is one that set him up on one, and another was the fact that Brendan Aronson, why do I keep saying it like that? I think I hear it like that on TV, like in the, when I'm listening to the highlights of him. Regardless, I'm going to just try to say Aronson a little more. But his ability to attack spaces and force the Jamaican defenders to kind of follow him and not go onto Lletget for that second goal was one of the main reasons why Lletget was able to score his brace. Those defenders had to attack that space, or I think it was the first goal that actually set it up like that. But it's just, you just like to see Lletget really get into those opportunities and really score those goals, because he's going to be an option that you're going to want to have in those big time games, because he's shown time and time again that he does finish. So that was a very, very strong game from the USA men's national team. You want to see more of that. You want to see more of all these players playing together and playing strong. And you got another game like that in that Northern Ireland game. They were able to defeat them 2-1, and they looked very strong doing so. You got the same goalkeeper in that spot. Let me actually just pull up that lineup right now. Where is it? Here it is. You got the same player between the sticks. You got Zach Steffen, who's, like I said, always going to be that man between the sticks, and they want to try to get him out of there as much as possible, so he gets those international reps. And he played really well over those two games, because I didn't really talk much about Steffen, just about the goal that he gave up, which wasn't really that bad a goal. And honestly, both goals that were given up between these two games were pretty crazy goals. Like, none more crazier than this Northern Ireland goal that was given up in late in this game, the 88th minute by Niall McGinn. He absolutely ripped it over Zach Steffen's head, hit the top of the crossbar before going in. There was no chance for Steffen to save this. And the defenders probably could have done a better position, could have done a better job there. But it's not like they gave up an easy goal. It's not like it was a tap-in goal. McGinn had to soar it over Steffen's head with a lot of force to get it past him. But overall, Steffen had a very strong international outing. over these 2 games. He stopped the ball when he needed to. He distributed it very well. He's got a lot of sweeper keeper abilities, and I'm just very excited for what we're going to have in the future from Zach Steffen, especially with him being so young. He's still got a lot of playing ahead of him. He's only 25 years old. He's 25. The fact that he's already getting these reps as the number 1 goalkeeper, we're going to have a very good goalkeeper between the sticks for the men's national team for years to come, no doubt about it. But regardless, going back to those lineups, you actually got the first that I can remember of a 3 center back lineup from Berhalter. Of course, like I said, John Brooks headed back to Germany, to the Bundesliga, since he couldn't play any longer in the international scene. And you got Tim Ream, Matt Miazga, and Aaron Long once again. So obviously, Berhalter trying to feel out Aaron Long there. And another thing that I should have mentioned, Chris Richards. I believe this was his first international or senior team appearance for the United States men's national team. And that's exciting because you want to see those young center backs get time, because those are the ones that you're going to be looking for to take that step and kind of fill in next to John Brooks. John Brooks still has a lot of time left, and I know all these other players like Chris Richards, Brian Reynolds, I believe is another, are still very, very young. You're hoping they can develop enough, to fill in one of those spots before he gets too old and you're looking for another spot next to one of those players. So, but regardless, I kind of like that 3-man center back position, or the 3 center back formation. I like it. I feel like it gives a lot of options up top. And you still got a pretty good option. You got Pulisic, Reina up top again. Of course, Sargent, same thing since he's in the Bundesliga. He also had to go back. So they got what's his name, Jordan Sebachu. I don't even want to try that. Sebachu. I'm just gonna go Sebachu. I'm probably saying it so wrong, butchering his name. My apologies. But regardless, Jordan was able to fill in that number 9 role. But again, he's not really looked at as a long-time option. You also got Antonee Robinson. You got Serginho Dest in there as well. Robinson kind of playing like that left wing-back position. I guess you can kind of call it like a left mid. But that's kind of how I'm seeing it here on the screen. I'm sure maybe they played a little bit more back. Dest played that right wing-back position. And just emphasizing his versatility. The fact that he can play on either side of the field. It's just so important. And then you got Kellen Costa again, who was replaced by Luca de la Torre. And then Yunus Musa got another appearance, second straight start from him. And he was replaced by Sebastian Leggett at halftime. But this game was also another pretty dominant game from the United States men's national team. They had 61% possession, had 9 shots, 5 on target. You finally got a goal from Gio Reyna, even though it took a pretty nasty deflection. And you'll take those. It doesn't matter. It's the fact that he's taking the opportunities, taking those goals. And then, of course, Christian Pulisic, just doing what he always does, getting by multiple defenders, making them miss. And they made him miss so much that they actually hit him. It was a very weak challenge, something that didn't... I was like... Even though I'm a men's national team, obviously I'm a USA fan, so I'm obviously going to say that's a penalty all day, every day. But in retrospect, it could have gone either way because it was very weak. It was a small challenge, but regardless, we got the penalty, and Christian Pulisic was able to finish it, the captain for the day. And you love to see that Reyna and Pulisic scoring goals for the United States in a win over Northern Ireland. And like I said, McGinn was able to get that late goal in the 88th minute to kind of make it, somewhat interesting. But regardless, in the end, you got the USA winning that game and looking, like I said, very dominant. And they've been, really killing it. They've over the last couple games, like I told you. Obviously, I talked about the Jamaica game, but then defeating Trinidad and Tobago 7-0. I believe this is Slovenia. El Salvador, my apologies. Defeating them 6-0. Defeating Panama 6-2. These are all very, very dominant wins. They did have that goalless draw against Wales that I kind of feel like that was like my first look at this young generation, in a big game against a country that, it's not one of those big countries, but it's still a country that has, a lot of talent in it. I remember I did a top 10 Wales players in the world a few months ago, I believe, and they got a lot of talent. And regardless, the fact that the USA just continues to get better and better is a great sign. I cannot wait to see how they perform in those big games like the Gold Cup, the CONCACAF Nations League against Honduras in the semifinal. You got the World Cup qualifiers. It's all getting here sooner rather than later, and I'm just excited. Super excited to see it happen. And yeah, so that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around because when I come back, I'm going to be talking about those FIFA World Cup qualifiers. Yes, we got that World Cup coming up. Not super, I guess, yeah, soon, next year, man, 2022. It's already a year away. I'm just all getting inside, ready to see that happen. And yeah, we're going to be talking about that next, right after this.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. If you missed the last segment, we talked about the USA International Friendlies, talked about the games, talked about which players stepped up, and now we're going to be talking about the FIFA World Cup qualifiers. We had those preliminary games kicking off pretty much this week, and I'm going to focus primarily on the Europe games. There are a lot of qualifiers, not enough. I can be here for easily an hour talking about that alone. But I'm going to be talking about the Europe qualifiers. We have all the groups kicking off already, and I'm just going to quickly talk about each team, how they started off. Obviously we have a couple that have only played one game, a few that have played two. So we're just going to get into that. So yeah, let's just get started with Group A. It consists of Serbia, Portugal, Luxembourg, Azerbaijan. Some of these names are a little tough to say, so bear with me. And then the Republic of Ireland. I'll go and talk about Group A first before I start talking about all the groups and who's in there. So first off, we had a game between Portugal and Azerbaijan, and Portugal took care of business, defeating them 1-0, but it was not a convincing victory. It took an own goal by the opposing team for Portugal to take the 1-0 win, but they'll take it. I mean, it's the opening game in the qualifiers, and it gets them the win. They had Cristiano Ronaldo out there. They had Andre Silva, Pedro Neto, Neves, Bernardo Silva, João Cancelo, and Moutinho. Ruben Diaz, obviously he's been killing it in the Premier League. And of course, their number one goalkeeper, Anthony Lopez. They did what they had to do. Of course, you would want to see, a bit more dominance here from a team as good as Portugal, especially against a team that, if I'm being straight honest, I don't even know anything about. But at the same time, they got a victory. They're up, they got all 3 points, and, they're looking pretty solid, at least early on. However, in the second game, they took on, They took on Serbia, and obviously, in this group, the two best teams are Serbia and Portugal. Obviously, you would give Portugal, obviously a cushion in that discussion, but this actually came to a standstill. It was a 2-2 draw between Serbia and Portugal came out extremely strong in that second game. That first half was all Portugal. They never let up on Serbia. Serbia barely got any opportunities, and they go into the half up 2-0. Portugal did. But in the second half, you have to be impressed with what Serbia were able to do. get into their motions a lot better, get into the attacking third of Portugal much more efficiently, and were able to get a lot more opportunities. And in the end, they ended up drawing the game. They even almost took the lead a few times, but they were not able to do so. Got a draw. And after what Serbia were able to do in their first game against the Republic of Ireland, which honestly, Ireland's going to look at that as a victory because it had been 7 matches since they had scored a goal. So for them to get 2 goals in that game against Serbia, who, obviously, like I said, is one of the 2 best teams in this group, they're going to look at that as a win, as a good momentum for the next game. However, they were still losing. They still lost 3-2 to Serbia in that game, despite taking a lead twice. They got the opening goal, and after that, they scored the second goal after Serbia had tied, and Serbia did not let up. They were still able to keep on going. And I'll tell you what, Dusan Tadic is the man that is the key to that entire offense for Serbia. Of course, you have Mitrovic, which is now the all-time leading goal scorer for Serbia. But still, he doesn't get those goals if Tadic does not set him up every single time. And I'm pretty sure in this game, Tadic had a hat trick of assists. The man is going to, I'm just saying, Serbia is going to go as far as he takes them. And he's been looking very good so far in these early qualifiers. And they were able to get that win, get a 3-2 victory over the Republic of Ireland. So they opened up with a win, just like Portugal did. So to get that draw, they at the moment stand at the top of Group A with a win and a draw. But they do have that for those 5 goals to go ahead of Portugal, who only have 3 in the opening 2 games. Now, between these 2 teams, obviously you would like to see Portugal get a win there, but you got to give it to Serbia to at least, come out of that half and really impose their will on that game to stay up top of Group A. It was a very important game for them. It was a very important, because not that they wouldn't be qualifying. Obviously, we're very early on in qualifiers, but to kind of send a message to the group that they were, that they're there to be not just fight for second, to possibly lead the group. So early on, it's looking very good for them. For the Republic of Ireland, on the other hand, despite looking very strong in that opening game against Serbia, getting the lead twice in that game and really giving Serbia a lot of, trouble. They were not able to have that same type of answer against Luxembourg, losing 1-0 to them. And it hurts, especially with them losing that game late with a goal in the 85th minute for Luxembourg. And that was their only game of so far of these early qualifiers. I know they have an extra one against Portugal, which obviously we'll see how that goes. And same thing for Azerbaijan. They have an extra game against Serbia. So, maybe those 2 teams, it'll be interesting to see how those 2, juggernaut countries take this, underperforming competition, I guess you would say, or lesser competition. Will they take care of business? Will they, or will they fall under the pressure of having to get these victories? So at the moment, Serbia, Portugal taking care of business, kind of drawing it out and are at the top of the table. Luxembourg taking care of business versus Republic of Ireland. And you just need to see more from their offense in terms of Ireland. They need to get more. Their defense is not good enough to keep them in games. And obviously their offense has not been good enough of late. So you need to see more from that country there. But at the moment, that's how Group A stands. For Group B, I actually like the competition in Group B. Obviously, at the top, you have Spain. They're going to be considered the best team in this group. But then you also have Sweden, which is a very underrated country. And then you also have Greece, which is another country that is underrated. And then you got Georgia and Kosovo completing the group here. You look at the matches, and it started off with a win for Sweden over Georgia, and then a draw for Spain against Greece. And I would actually say that's the most interesting game there, because you would expect Spain to kind of take care of business against a team like Greece, even though Greece certainly have, a lot of good team players on their team. I'm not even going to try. That wouldn't be smart for me. But obviously they got guys like for Spain, they got Sergio Ramos, Marcus Llorente, Ferran Torres, Alvaro Morata, Daniel Olmo, Rodrigo. I mean, they got a slew of players up and down that roster. Even on the bench, I mean, they have the luxury of having a guy like Jordi Alba, De Gea, who else? Pedri, Fabian Ruiz, Thiago, Sergio Busquets off the bench. And that's just how strong this team is, but they were not able to hold on to the victory. Morata scored the opening goal in the 33rd minute, but a penalty in the second half allowed Greece to tie it up, and they were able to hold on and get that tie to hold on to a point here at least. And that's a big-time victory for Greece to get a point over possibly the top team in this group. Obviously, they're going to be looking to hold on to that. Hold on to that lead. And let me see. Why is it not loading up? Oh, because I fall all the way to the bottom. So at the moment, you got Greece with that lone point with that draw. But then you look at the other games. Like I said, Sweden were able to take care of business versus Georgia. Despite only winning 1-0, you still get the 3 points. That's the most important thing. And then Georgia did not get a good opening schedule. They took on first Sweden, and now they took on Spain, losing to Spain 2-1. And even then, you would expect Spain to kind of dominate that game, get a 3-0 victory, maybe even 4-0, and kind of, show their dominance in this group. But they still get the 3 points, and with Sweden absolutely just killing Kosovo 3-0. Sweden are at the moment at the top of the group with 2 wins in their first 2 games. Very strong start for them. They have not allowed a goal. They've scored 4, and they have 6 points. Spain, obviously with that tie against Greece, they fall 2 points behind Sweden. But of course, we have a lot more to go. So it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. I'm expecting Spain to lead the group, Sweden to be a close second, especially with this strong start. That Spain versus Sweden game is going to be very exciting to watch. We're going to get that in September of later this year. So I'm going to be excited to see that game. And yeah, after that, it's obviously going to draw out. We have a lot more games to go, and it ends in November, these Europe qualifiers. So we got a lot of games to go. But early on, Sweden's looking very good. Spain, a little uneven, allowing goals in both of their games, but still being able to come out with 4 points in 2 games is not the worst, possible scenario there for them. Next, in the next group, we have Group C, Italy. Obviously, at the top of the group, you got Switzerland, another very underrated team. And then after that, you got 3 kind of, teams kind of fighting for that third spot. You got Lithuania, Northern Ireland, and Bulgaria. And the group is pretty much looking up that, kind of shaping up that way, at least in the early portions of the competition. You got Italy and Switzerland taking care of both of their first early games. Switzerland destroying Bulgaria 3-1. Italy beating Northern Ireland 2-0. And then in the next game, obviously you got to feel bad for Bulgaria to have to take on Italy and Switzerland in their first 2 games. But Italy defeats Bulgaria 2-0. And then Switzerland defeats Lithuania 1-0 in their second game. And both these teams looking very good. Of course, Switzerland giving up that 1 goal, so they are below Italy in terms of goal differential. That's why they're second. Italy, 4 goals, no goals allowed. 6 points in their first 2 games, looking very, very strong. And you look at the game against Northern Ireland, they got goals from Berardi and Immobile. Obviously, they got a lot of attacking options on that team. And I actually like this team overall. You got strong defenders like Chiellini, Bonucci, and then I like their some of their fullbacks. Florenzi, I'm probably a little bit biased there since he plays for PSG. And the same thing for Marco Verratti. I mean, he's one of the best midfielders in the world. Pellegrini is a great center attacking midfielder. And then that front 3 of Insigne, Berardi, and Ciro Immobile is extremely dangerous. And you saw that in this game. To get 2 goals from that front 3, it's going to happen on a regular basis here. But so far, so good for Italy. Now, let me just back out here, see if you can... Yeah, all right. But yeah, early on, looking good for Italy. Same thing for Switzerland. They got a lot of great players on that team, and they've looked very strong, especially with that 3-1 win over Bulgaria. They scored early on in that game. They got 3 goals in the first 12 minutes. One from Mbolo, another one from Severovic, another one from Zubair. Again, sorry if I'm butcher. I know I didn't butcher those first 2 names, but Zubair, maybe I did, not sure. But they scored in the 7th minute, 10th minute, and 12th minute. Really put it on Bulgaria. Bulgaria were able to get a consolation goal in the 46th minute, right after the second half, but we're not able to do much else after that. And don't get a win here, of course, or at least even a draw. But Switzerland taking care of business, looking very strong early on, and that keeps them on, in pace with Italy at the top of the group. Again, I'm not expecting them to, keep pace with Italy for the entire qualifiers. It's going to be very interesting to see how that game turns out between them in the next set of qualifiers in September as they take on each other on September 5th. I'm going to be very excited to cover that game. But right now, we still have to, of course, for all these qualifiers that I'm talking about, we still have a couple games left later on this week. I'll talk about those games in my next show, but at the moment, you got Northern Ireland taking on Bulgaria next. Those two teams are going to be hoping to get some points there. Even a draw would work, but of course, they're both going to be eyeing a win because they need to start making that separation from, the other two teams fighting for third place. So that's going to be a very, very important game there to start off this qualifier for them. And of course, you got Lithuania taking on Italy. Not expecting much from them there, but of course, anything can happen. It is football, but still expect Italy to take care of business there. Next, we're going to be talking about Group D, because I do have to go through these quick. There are a lot of teams. There are a lot of groups. We got France at the top of this group, and then you have Finland, Ukraine, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Kazakhstan. Now, of course, you listen to all those countries' names, and you're thinking this is an easy group for France. They are going to breeze through it, no question, and I'm agreeing with you there. This is a very easy group for France, especially when you consider, Finland have looked pretty strong early on. They've got 2 draws in their first 2 games. One draw was against Bosnia and Herzegovina. The other was against Ukraine, which is a team here that I feel is extremely underrated and one that could possibly, separate itself as the second best team in this group. A Ukraine country that has been in very good form. They looked very strong in the Nations League, and in these first couple qualifiers, they've looked strong. They got a draw against France. That is a huge step into getting into that second spot, especially when France scored early in that game. I'm sure many watching were expecting France to kind of blow the door off of this game. Griezmann scoring a goal in the 19th minute. They go into halftime up 1-0, but you're still expecting France to kind of breeze to these 3 points. Yet, Ukraine steps up, scores in the 57th minute to equalize and get at least a point in this game. That was huge for them, especially since they are, in my opinion, the second best team in this group. And I can't, toss Finland aside for them to at least get 2 draws here, especially one against Ukraine. That is huge, especially, with them being able to keep pace with Ukraine, as both teams have 2 points. But since Finland did score 3 goals and Ukraine only scored 2 in those opening 2 games, they currently have the lead in second place. Of course, you got France with that win and draw. They're ahead of those teams by 2 points at the top of the table, and that's where it's pretty much going to stay. Now, for Bosnia-Herzegovina, Kazakhstan, I'm not expecting much from them. I don't think they have enough on the offensive end to really outscore any of these teams, even Bosnia. I just think it's going to be very tough for them to keep pace here. But Bosnia, I do expect, I expect a fight between them and Finland when it all comes down to it, for them to be fighting for that third spot, and possibly Bosnia being one of those teams to have enough points to qualify for the playoff round. So keep an eye on this group. You might have a few more qualifiers into the World Cup than you might expect. Next group, we have Group E, where we have Czech Republic, Belgium, the number 1 team in the world, Belarus, Wales, and Estonia. Now, this is the one where it's very one-sided when you consider, the teams that are here. Obviously, Belgium is considered the number 1 team or the number 1 country in the entire world. They showed it as, in my opinion, Czech is a very good team, and they could be fighting for second on this team, especially when you consider the way they've started, defeating Estonia 6-2. Now, I know Estonia is nowhere near the kind of quality country in terms of, all the skills that they have in terms of their players to measure up to this group. But to defeat them 6-2, that is still extremely impressive and a great start for them in this group stage. But they did also draw against Belgium, so that needs to be said. That is a huge, huge start for them in these qualifiers. But for Estonia, they even lost 4-2 to Belarus. And although that was a better game than what we saw from them from Czech Republic, it's still, an eye-opener in terms of what you're going to see from them throughout this entire qualifiers. So giving up 10 goals in the first 2 games is not the way you want to start. 0 points. Of course, Wales losing that opening match to Belgium 3-1 is also not a good start. But again, it is Belgium, and I mean, it all depends on what kind of Wales team we see. They are relying on a lot of young players, guys like Harry Wilson, Daniel James, Mpadu, Neco Williams, Joe Woden. It's a lot of youth on this team. But then they also have guys that have shown, that they can play big on the stages. You got Gareth Bale on this team. And of course, I know Gareth Bale has not been the same internationally. And also, honestly, overall, he has not been playing at that same level that you've expected of him. But he is that game-changing type of player that can certainly turn the tide in a group stage. And they're going to need him to play at the top of his level, because if he doesn't, they're going to have no chance, especially with the way Czech Republic has started. They got a lot of confidence moving forward. And in this game, and Belgium, they got talent to spare. So I'm not worried about them whatsoever. But you look at the early parts, they are down at the moment. They're well, not down, but they're tied with Czech Republic at 4 points. You got Belarus getting that win, of great start for them in the qualifiers over Estonia. But again, Estonia is the easiest competition that they're going to see in this group. So they got a lot more games to go. They take on Belgium on March 30th. So we'll see how that game goes. If they're able to hold on, or at least make it a close game. I'm not expecting even a draw here, but if they can make it a close game and kind of show that they, certainly are a team to be, to not be trifled with, then I would kind of change my thoughts on them to be able to hold on to a third spot over Wales, which would be quite a shock. But that Wales versus Czech Republic game is really going to show you what kind of team Wales is going to be throughout these qualifiers. So we'll hold on to our tongue here to just say who's going to make it where. But of course, we know Belgium is going to be at the top of this group, and then everyone else is going to follow behind. But at the moment, Czech Republic with those 7 early goals, obviously the 6 on Estonia certainly helps there, but still, you got, which just, makes me think, how much is Belgium going to put on them? But we'll just have to wait until September to see that, as they take on each other on September 2nd. But yeah, good early starts for Czech and Belgium. Group F, we have Denmark, Austria, Scotland, Faroe Islands, Israel, and Moldova. And this is actually one of the groups that I feel is going to be the most even though I love Denmark. I think Denmark is going to be, the top team in this group, especially with the way they started. 10 goals scored, not a single one allowed. So they have been very strong early, but 8 of those 10 came against Moldova. And it, obviously that has a lot to do with it. And they also got the 2-0 victory over Israel. Those are the 2 worst teams here, because I think Faroe Islands is a very underrated club, or I should say country. But I don't think they have enough talent to keep up with Scotland or Austria. And I'll tell you what, Austria, the way they've looked early on, very, very impressive. They got a 2-2 draw against Scotland, though Scotland was the one that was able to fight back time and time again whenever Austria took the lead. But then a 3-1 win over Faroe Islands was huge. Scotland not able to follow up that 2-2 draw with a win over Israel. Not what you were expecting from them. You kind of wanted to see a victory there after, an impressive comeback win, or I guess a comeback draw against Austria. But still, both those teams are looking very strong. Austria, with the win, are ahead of Scotland. They got 4 points. Scotland with 2 after getting those 2 draws. But then Denmark are the lone team at the top of this group with 6 points, looking very, very strong early on. But of course, they got a lot better competition coming ahead of them as the qualifiers continue. I don't expect them to lose the group, to fall any lower than first in this group. But still, it's going to be a lot tougher competition as the qualifiers move along. Group G, we have some history in the makings here, as Turkey gets the first 2 wins. The first time in their history, they get the first 2 wins in a World Cup qualifier with let me see those victories. A 4-2 win over Netherlands, huge win for them. Netherlands being, obviously one of the most, popular teams here in this group. And then a 3-0 victory over Norway. And those are the 2 toughest teams in this group. Obviously, Norway with the, crazy quality of Erling Haaland, and then Netherlands with, a slew of players. Obviously, at the moment, they don't have their star center back of Virgil van Dijk, but still, for Turkey to be able to put on that many goals on Netherlands, a hat trick from Yilmaz, who has been great in domestically, and then Kalhanoglu scores early on in that second half. Of course, Netherlands were at least able to get close, make it 3-2, but then Yilmaz was able to score in the 81st minute to kind of seal the deal for Turkey. And I mean, a great start for them. You got to give it to Turkey to, kind of make a little bit of history here for them and start off very strong in this group. But they need to continue. They took on the toughest competition, in my opinion, here, even though Montenegro are tied with them at the top of the group after victories over Latvia and Gibraltar. But those are the easiest competition here. I mean, they both give up 4 and 7 goals respectfully, but still, those are low quality teams. But Montenegro is showing that they're able to get victories there, and with Netherlands and Norway being able to get a victory over those two teams as well. Netherlands over Latvia and Norway over Gibraltar. You see how this group is kind of shaping up. Turkey, if they can, I mean, they certainly have the quality. They have a lot of very high quality players on that team, but expect as the qualifiers go on for this to be a very tight group. And now that I'm looking at it, I was saying the one with which one was it? The one that I just finished talking about with Denmark, Austria, Scotland, Group F to be the tightest group. But you're looking at this one. If Montenegro is as good as they've shown, even though obviously they took on the two easiest teams, they got to prove it against the bigger clubs or against the bigger countries. And they have a big game, don't they? Against, let me see. No, actually, I don't think so. Montenegro takes on Norway. So they do take on Norway on March 30th. So we'll have to see how that game goes. Of course, Norway is mainly known for, their top striker, Erling Haaland, and they have not looked good starting because Turkey to beat them 3-0. They were able to 3-0 Gibraltar, but that's not really anything to go, home and cheer about. So we'll have to see how that game turns out, and that will really tell me how this, obviously it's very early on, but it'll tell me how this qualifier will turn out. And I believe, we got a lot more. Oh my God, I got to keep going. Russia, in Group H, we got Russia, Slovenia, Croatia, Slovakia, Cyprus, and Malta. Russia have started off very strong with 2 wins in their first 2 matches to have a 6-point lead here in the group. Slovenia and Croatia were able to get a win as well, so they each have 3 points. However, they both also have losses. Croatia defeating Cyprus, but they lose to Slovenia, and Slovenia losing 2-1 to Russia. So that was a big game for Russia and a very strong start for them. So they're at the moment looking at as the top group, the top country in this group. But obviously, in the end, you got to expect Croatia to kind of distance themselves as the qualifiers go on. And I believe this is not the last group. Oh my God! So Group I, we got England, Poland, Hungary, Albania, Andorra, and San Marino. England started off very strong, what you would expect from them in this type of group. A 2-0 victory, or 2 wins in their first 2 matches. 7 goals scored, not a single one allowed, which has kind of been the case for this defense from England. They got a 5-0 win over San Marino, what you would expect from them, but then they also got a 2-0 victory over Albania. So it's not big victories. I mean, you want to see how they do against Hungary and Poland, who had a stalemate in the first match of the competition, a 3-3 draw. Very exciting game. Let me see how that game panned out. Well, I kind of accidentally clicked England versus San Marino, which you got Ward-Prowse, Calvert-Lewin getting a brace, Watkins and Sterling getting scores as well. But let's look at that other game between, let's see, how can I get there? Come on. Group I, here we are, where we had Hungary and Poland. You get Lewandowski scoring, you got Piatek, and then Hungary scoring early, getting a 2-0 victory, actually. But then you got a back-to-back goals from Poland to make it 2-2. You had Orban scoring another goal for Hungary to make it 3-2. But then Lewandowski doing what Lewandowski always does, which is kind of come through for Poland and get the final goal of the game to make it 3-3 and at least salvage a point for them. So a big victory for Poland there. Or, I guess, you can say it's a draw. But in the end, I always look at that as a victory for the team that was able to salvage the point. And they hold on for at least a second spot there. And Hungary as well, they're right there behind them with 4 points. But England is currently at the top, and you expect them to be there for this entire qualifiers. I just don't see them, even though they took on the easiest teams, or 2 of the easiest teams, in this competition or in this group. You expect them to be at the top even when they take on teams like Hungary and Poland. And now the last group, we have Group J, which has Germany in probably the easiest group in this entire competition. They got Armenia, North Macedonia, Romania, Iceland, and Liechtenstein. And that is as easy as it gets, despite Armenia winning their first 2 games. So they're right behind Germany, who also won their first 2. But Germany, in my opinion, when you're talking about quality, the second best team here is between Iceland and maybe North Macedonia. I think North Macedonia has some pretty solid team chemistry there. And Germany defeated Iceland, and they went up against Romania, defeated them 1-0. But you got North Macedonia defeating Liechtenstein 5-0. North Macedonia did, however, lose to Romania 3-2, so we have to see how that goes, how that pans out through the rest of the qualifiers. However, great start for Germany, great start for Armenia, and North Macedonia as well. I mean, to get 7 goals in the first 2 games, very strong for them, and Romania there as well. Iceland, terrible start for them. They've lost. They lost the first 2 and didn't even score a goal. Lost 3-0 to Germany, but that's going to happen. Anybody's going to lose 3-0 to Germany in this group. But then they lost 2-0 to Armenia. Not what you want to see from them. You would have expected them to get at least 1 win here in the first 2 games, and they did not do so. So not a strong start for them. But Germany looking very good in the opening start of these qualifiers. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around, because when I come back, I'm going to be talking about the Under-23 CONCACAF Men's Olympic qualifying right after this.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. If you missed the last segment, I went over the European World Cup qualifiers, went over each of those early preliminary games that have happened so far in the qualifiers. It's a lot of exciting things going on. If you want to check that out, please go and do so. But now we're going to be talking about the Under-23 CONCACAF Men's Olympic qualifying. The final round has pretty much about to end. They're in the semifinals now. You got Mexico versus Canada going at it at the moment. Unfortunately, the USA run is over, and they're not going to be qualifying for the Olympics. But I want to talk to you guys about the final round, as it pretty much got started in mid-March. And now that I said, it's coming to an end now, but we're going to go through that whole run of the final round, talk about how each team did in each game, and see how it goes. See how, if I enjoy this under-23 competition, because I have never covered under-23, so we're kind of be taking this journey together. You know what I'm talking about? So let's get started with the first game in the final round. We had 2 games go at it. We had United States versus Costa Rica, and then you had Mexico versus the Dominican Republic. So let's first start off with the United States, who did not look all that comfortable in this game. They were pretty much dominated by Costa Rica. Were outshot. The possession was pretty even, but I never really, as I've covered these games more and more, I never really care much about possession, yeah, I'll say it. When a team clearly, dominated the game and then they also dominated possession, I'll talk about it. But for the most part, it doesn't really tell you the whole picture of the game. So this possession was pretty even, but United States was not really doing much with what they were getting. They were barely getting shots off. They had 7 shots, only 2 on target, while Costa Rica had 19 shots in this game, 8 on target, and looked like the more dominant team, kind of getting into the final third much more. We're getting way more opportunities, and even though United States, they did have a pretty clear chance early on with Jesus Ferreira missing his chance. However, he was able to redeem himself in the 35th minute, getting United States that winner in the first half, and we're able to get all 3 points. So it was a big start for the United States in their final round of the Olympic qualifiers. I'm mixing my words up over here, but it was not a convincing win. So obviously there was a little doubts here and there with the United States under-23 team to qualify, especially with them not looking good in this game. But they were able to take care of business and get the win. In my opinion, that was the most important thing. But then you get Mexico, and they looked dominant in their game. Dominican Republic kind of stood no chance in this game. Mexico got off to a strong start, getting a goal in the 21st minute by Carlos Rodriguez. And for the most part, it was just a dominant Mexico performance. They had 74% possession, and they defeated Dominican Republic 4-1, getting 19 shots off, 11 on target, while the Dominican Republic only had 3 shots, 2 on target, one of those being a penalty that was given to them late in the game in the 72nd minute, when this game was pretty much already out of reach for them. They were already down 3-0. But they were able to get a goal back, but it pretty much meant little to nothing as Francisco Reyes scored the third of his 3 goals in the 94th minute to kind of, obviously put the cherry on top for Mexico in this game. And yeah, I mean, he dominated in this game, getting a goal in the 51st minute, 69th minute to pretty much just end it for Dominican Republic in this opening game of the first round of the final round. And Mexico just looked really, really good, as they have throughout their history in these competitions. And it's not surprising to me that they look way stronger than how United States have. Mexico always seemed to have their number on us, but still, they did get a goal scored on them, and it was really the only goal they had scored on them in the entire first round. That was the game that kind of separated themselves from the rest of the pack, as it really gave them an edge on that goal differential. You looked at the other games. You had Honduras versus Haiti, and then you had Canada versus El Salvador. Those were the 4 teams that were left in this final round, at least for, for Group A and Group B. So you had Group B going at it in that second day of the final round, and you had Honduras looking very strong in their early parts of the competition. They defeated Haiti 3-0, getting 3 goals in the first half and pretty much ending it. For Haiti, they did end up getting a red card late in the game, but for the most part, this was Honduras' game from start to finish. Just dominated the first half, obviously going into half up 3-0. Haiti had some opportunities. They had 7 shots, 4 on target. Possession wasn't, heavily in Honduras' favor, but they did have 58%. The pass accuracy was pretty even both sides, so both were kind of, getting into a rhythm. But for the most part, this was all Honduras. They really hit Haiti in the chin early on in that first half and did not let up. Just continued to give it to them and came away with all 3 points here and looked very dominant to start the final round. And then you had Canada versus El Salvador, and Canada's Tajon Buchanan scored the first 2 goals of this game. The only 2 goals in this game in the 17th and 21st minute, which allowed Canada to pretty much make that separation and hold on to that separation as they would win 2-0. And they didn't look that great. I mean, they had 10 shots, only 4 of those on target, while El Salvador had 16 shots, 5 on target, had more possession. But again, as I just recently said, possession pretty much doesn't mean anything. And El Salvador was not able to take advantage of those opportunities that they had. And that cost them the game, and that cost them these 3 points. It even cost them a point, which would have gone a long way. When you look at how it panned out, They ended up losing to Canada and Honduras in the Group B by just 1 point. That obviously really hurts them, and to get that loss early on in the competition, or early on in this final round, certainly made the difference between whether they would make it to that final knockout round or not. So next we had the United States taking on the Dominican Republic, and then you had Mexico taking on Costa Rica. And both teams, this is where both United States and Mexico really separated themselves from the rest of the group and really showed that they were the team. Well, this clinched themselves into the next round. United States getting a 4-0 victory over the Dominican Republic. Jackson Yulee, the captain for this United States under-23 squad, scored the opening goal in the 61st minute. But that first half, even though United States dominated it as well, was a bit of a struggle. They were the Dominican Republic were able to hold on, make those stops, get a few deflections, blocks, and were able to hold off United States from getting any goals in that first half. However, they were not able to hold on any longer, as in the second half, United States put 4 goals on them and made sure that they took advantage of this opportunity that they had to kind of clinch that spot in one of those final 4 spots. They had 17 shots in this game, 7 on target, while Dominican Republic barely got anything going. 5 shots, only 1 on target, had 26% possession in this game, so they barely had even, any control of the ball, which makes it really hard for them to get a rhythm, as you can see by their shot charts. And when you really see that in the whole game, it was just a dominant performance from the United States under-23 squad. And they just showed what you would expect from them as the competition goes on. You were hoping that you'd get to see this kind of game against Mexico, which is obviously the next team that they would take on. But that would not obviously be the case, which we'll get to very soon. But regardless, 2 games, 2 wins. This is exactly what you wanted to see from your United States under-23 squad. And they took care of business, clinching that spot in the final round. Well, I guess, I don't know what you would call it. What, the final 4, I guess you would call it. Since we're in March Madness, it kind of fits. But then we got the Mexico versus Costa Rica game. And this one was actually a lot closer than the scoreline shows. Despite Mexico getting off to a very strong start, scoring in the 6th minute, this game was back and forth. Costa Rica were getting their opportunities, were not allowing Mexico to do whatever they wanted early on in this game, despite Mexico having that early lead. Mexico wouldn't score again until the second half. So Costa Rica were keeping it close. They just weren't able to solve that Mexico defense, were not able to get through, and weren't able to score a goal. They lost 3-0 to Mexico, as Alexis Vega and Francisco Reyes, who scored that hat-trick in the first game, both contributed with a goal in the second half to make it 3-0 for Mexico. And overall, this was, again, it was a good victory by Mexico. I mean, to win 3-0, that's always a very strong win. But it wasn't as convincing as the first game was against Dominican Republic. I mean, it's expected. Costa Rica is a much better team than the Dominican Republic. But regardless, they were still able to take care of business, get all 3 points, and clinch that final spot in the tournament. Next, we had Haiti versus Canada, and then you had El Salvador versus Honduras, and both games ended in a draw, kind of making it, a very exciting ending to this competition as to which team would be able to move on to the next round. Haiti and Canada went off to a goalless draw. Both teams had opportunities. I mean, Haiti had 17 shots in this game, 4 on target, while Canada were once again outshot and had 4 shots on target as well. The possession was pretty even. Pass accuracy was pretty even. There were a lot of fouls both sides, though Canada were consistently being called offside, had 6 offside calls in this game, so they obviously weren't, I don't know what you would call it, but they just weren't getting the correct runs, were being a little bit impatient with their runs, and it was costing them opportunities to score goals, or at least get a shot on goal. So, but in the end, Haiti were able to hold on, get a goalless draw. Obviously, the offense has not been strong for Haiti throughout this competition, as they were not able to score against Honduras in the first game, so they get another goalless game here. But their defense was able to hold on, get the point. in the end, that's what was the most important thing, to at least get a point to give them a chance to qualify for one of those final spots. And in the other game, you had Honduras versus El Salvador. El Salvador, who were just dominated by Canada in the last game, even though, it wasn't a clean victory for Canada, were able to come into this game and were able to hold on for a win. Or not a win, a draw. It was a 1-1 draw between El Salvador and Honduras. And Honduras looked great in this game as well, even though it wasn't as dominant of a victory as they had against Haiti. They still looked very strong. In the first half, there was no scores. It was a 0-0 game going into the half. But then you had Honduras scoring very early on in that second half, getting a 46th-minute goal from Douglas Martinez. But El Salvador were not going away quietly. They were able to get a few shots in the second half. That first half was very quiet from them. They were barely able to do anything. It was mostly Honduras getting the opportunities. Though, like I said, they were able to hold on to get a goalless first half. But then El Salvador were able to get a little bit more momentum in that second half. And they were able to get that goal that they desperately needed to have a chance to secure a spot in the final round. Or in the final four, I guess I'll say. And they were able to get those 3 shots on target. And one was able to get past the goalkeeper in the 64th minute by Marvin Marquez to give El Salvador that lone goal and a very important point as we head into the final game of the final round. Now, the last games that we saw in the Group A was you had Costa Rica versus the Dominican Republic, and then you had Mexico versus the United States. Now, the Costa Rica versus Dominican Republic game, I guess it was just to see who can get third place, a little bit of pride here. And as I said, Costa Rica was obviously a much better team than the Dominican Republic. We had seen that as the competition, at least in the first 2 games, we saw that happen. And Costa Rica showed their dominance. They absolutely obliterated Dominican Republic, defeating them 5-0, getting 2 goals in the first half, getting an extra 3 in the second. And it was just as clear as day who was going to be winning this game from the opening tip. You had 20 shots from Costa Rica, while Dominican Republic only had 5, and 2 of those were on target. 65% possession in favor of Costa Rica. Just any stat you want to look at, it was clearly in favor of Costa Rica, and it was kind of just a game for them to just be like, let their frustrations out as they were no longer able to qualify for one of those final 4 spots. And Dominican Republic, it was just not their competition. They were able to get into this final round by defeating St. Kitts and Nevis. I do not know who that is, but they were able to get into this final round by defeating them 2-0. But it was just not good enough in this final round. They just were a little bit outside of their class here, and it showed. Losing all 3 games, having a -12 goal differential, allowing 13 goals, and only scoring 1 goal in all 3 games. So definitely not the game or definitely not the tournament or round that Dominican Republic were expecting. And for Costa Rica, letting their frustrations out, getting the 5 goals, giving themselves a positive goal differential, but still too little, too late for them as they fell way short of United States, who were in second place with 6 points, which we're going to be getting to right now as Mexico took on the United States in the final game of Group A. And it was Mexico who were able to score the only goal in this game in the 45th minute by Uriel Antuna. And this was actually a pretty dominated game by Mexico, even though the possession was pretty even. You can kind of tell by the way it was going. Mexico looked a lot more organized, looked a lot cleaner with their passes, and in the final possession, they looked a lot, I would say, more comfortable when it came to those final third possessions. The United States only had 7 shots, 1 on target, while Mexico had 13 shots, despite only have 3 of those on target. One of those were able to get by the goalkeeper Ochoa, which I believe was the goalkeeper in this game. Yes, Ochoa, who was the number 1 goalkeeper for the United States in this competition. And that was all she wrote. I mean, you wanted to expect a little bit more from the United States. This was a game to kind of see who was going to make it to the top of Group A. And obviously, it would depend on who made it at the top of Group B to see who we would take on. In the end, they lost. They get second place, which then put them up against Honduras, who were able to lead Group B. And we look at that final group game between El Salvador, Haiti, and then you had Honduras versus Canada. El Salvador and Haiti needed to hope for one of those two teams to win, Honduras and Canada, to win that last game in order to have a chance to make it into the next round. Because in the end, the most points they can get were 4. And despite even, obviously they had to dominate that game in order to have a better goal differential, it just wasn't in their favor as Honduras and Canada drew. And it was pretty much early on in the game that they scored these goals. Canada opened up the scoring with a Derek Cornelius 28th minute goal. And then Daniel Maldonado in the 30th minute answered pretty quickly for Honduras to make it 1-1. Both teams kind of had a stalemate, even though Honduras were getting much more opportunities in the final third. Canada were just trying to hold on to that 1 point to secure them a spot into the final 4. Canada only had 3 shots in this entire game. 1 on target, which was the one that they were able to get a score on. So they were able to at least take advantage of that one opportunity that they had, while Honduras had 25 shots, 5 on target. So obviously they had more opportunities, just didn't really take advantage of them. To only have 5 on target of those 25 shots, it kind of shows they were kind of just going for whatever small opportunities they had, and they just didn't connect on them very well. But regardless, Honduras were able to get the point, were able to hold on to that top spot in the group since they had a better goal differential after the 3 matches, and they get the top spot, which means they took on the United States in the semifinal of the men's Olympic qualifying. And that's where things get real sad, because you got United States versus Honduras, and in my opinion, we should have taken advantage of this game. We're a better squad, even though Honduras looked very strong in the final round. United States are the United States, and I'm sorry, but we should have won this game. It was very poor errors that allowed Honduras to win this game. The first goal, which was an extra time of the first half for Honduras, was a poor defensive effort by the United States. They allowed Honduras to get too many open looks, and it eventually cost them. Honduras had 14 shots in this game, 6 on target, and that first half was a very poor effort from the United States. They looked very sloppy, and it was surprising that they weren't even down more. So they had to thank their lucky stars that they went into the half only down 1. And you would expect that they'd come out much stronger and looking like a more focused team to get a goal back and take this into extras or even win the game. But early on in the second half, literally the first 2 minutes, Ochoa, the goalkeeper for the United States, gets the ball, makes a poor decision not to clear it out as soon as possible, hesitates, and when he finally decides to let it go, a Honduras player, Luis Palma, put his foot in the way and was able to take up a deflection into the back of the net. And that was all she wrote for the United States, because at that point they're down 2-0, and their offense had not been clicking throughout that entire game. Obviously, that goal kind of lit a fire under them, and Jackson Yulee, the captain for this United States under-23 squad, was able to get a really nice goal in the 52nd minute. So he answered shortly after, which obviously gave a lot of momentum in United States' way, which they took with stride. They were able to get a lot more opportunities. They looked way stronger, which makes you think, why wouldn't they do that throughout this entire game? It sucks, because now you're not going to see them in the Olympics, and that hurts. But this game was won by Honduras. They played the better game throughout. The United States only had 8 shots, 2 on target, 63% possession. They had more possession, but again, that doesn't mean the whole thing. It's what you do with that possession that really counts. So in the end, the United States lose 2-1 to Honduras. It's a bittersweet. No, it's just bitter. It's just bitter, because they could have easily won this game. They just gave up too many They had too many errors, and just an easy given goal by Ochoa to the Honduras. Luis Palma, it was just bad. So you had the Honduras moving on to the final, and now I guess the Mexico and Canada game is already over, with Mexico defeating Canada 2-0. You kind of would expect it to go this way, as Mexico has looked like the strongest team in this competition so far, and they dominated this game. Canada, once again, were unable to get anything going on the attacking end. Only had 3 shots, 1 on target, while Mexico had 19 shots, 6 on target, had a majority of the possession, and just looked like the stronger team. So Mexico won this game 2-0 and move on to the final to take on Honduras. And it'll be interesting to see how that game turns out. I'm expecting Mexico to dominate that game, though Honduras have looked like a very strong team. They play very well together. They hustle. They have a very strong work rate. And there's going to be a very interesting game. It's on March 30th. I'll probably recap it in my next show, so look out for that, but not for a full segment. I'll do a small piece of a segment, for this under 23, because now I'm invested in here since I'm talking so much about it. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Make sure you guys stick around, because when I come back, I'm going to be talking about the top 10 Chelsea players this season, my most exciting segment, right after this.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. If you missed the last segment, we talked about the Under-23 CONCACAF Men's Olympic qualifying. We went over the entire final round and discussed the semifinals that had just finished. And now we're going to be talking about the top 10 Chelsea players this season. It has been an up and down season for Chelsea. I mean, they've under Frank Lampard, they looked inconsistent. Defense was always leaking, and they had trouble staying in the top 4. But then they made that manager change. Thomas Tuchel came in, and he has been incredible since. I don't even think they haven't lost a game since he has been their manager, and they're looking to secure a top 4 spot in the league this season. And all these players that are going to be on this list are a big reason why they are there. So let's just get started with number 10, Cesar Aspellicueta. Cesar Aspellicueta, the captain for this team, has been so influential and so important to what they do. That back line would not go as it has this season without him there. He is great with the ball at his feet. It's just so perfect how he is a very, very strong defender. I mean, you look at his 1.1 tackles per game, 1.5 blocks, 1 interception, 3.4 clearances, and even 2.2 aerial duels, which is one of the best on this team. You put that all together with what he's able to do with the ball at his feet is just such a great combination to have at one of those fullback spots. He's got a goal to assist this season, 86% pass completion of about 68 passes per game, which is among the highest on this team. And he even has 0.8 key passes per game, which shows that he's an influential piece to that attack as well. So Aspellicueta is by far one of the most important pieces on this team. He is a glue for that team. He can do so many different things. You can place him anywhere on that back line, and he will flourish. And the fact that he is one of those few veteran pieces on a team that has a lot of young talent on there is also just as important. So that is why I have him at number 10. I just couldn't leave him off this kind of list. There were guys like Tammy Abraham that I was thinking about putting on here. Olivier Giroud, we're not going to have him here, even though he had that incredible month. It's just been a lot of inconsistencies from both of them. But they're having great seasons. I mean, both scoring over 10 goals for this team. I just feel like there's other players that have had just as important roles on this team that needed to have a little bit more spotlight here. So at number 9, I have Jorginho. The center defensive midfielder has been so perfect for this team since his arrival. He's been one of their main penalty kick takers. He had 7 goals this season, all from the PK. And he also had an assist. I mean, he controls the tempo of the midfield so well. I mean, an 89 completion percentage of about 59 passes per game. He completes 4.9 final third passes a game as well. And he obviously gives you what he does on defense. I mean, he's a great anchor for that midfield. He averages 1.4 tackles a game, 1.6 blocks, 1.4 interceptions. So he certainly gets, he certainly disrupts those opponent attacks, and he makes it very difficult for them to get anything going in that midfield, along with obviously another very good center defensive midfielder that's going to be a little bit later on this list. He is one of the main key pieces to making everything flow from defense to offense. Obviously, he doesn't help out too much on the offensive end. He's usually asked to stay back, play more of an anchor in that defense. But this team would not be as good defensively as it was this season had it not been for Jorginho and obviously a bunch of other players that you're going to see on this list. At number 8, I got Ben Chilwell, the fullback that just came onto this team this year. He was one of the best signings that they made. There were a lot that were not living up to expectations, like Kai Havertz, Hakim Ziyech, who was injured for a lot of this season, which is why neither one will be on this list. But Ben Chilwell came in and fit seamlessly into that back line. 29 matches played. He had 2 goals, 6 assists. He had a 78 completion percentage on 60 passes. He was great in the attack. He's really good with his dribbles. He has about 0.8 key passes per game as well. But the one place that I feel like he contributed the most was being a consistent defensive anchor for that back line as well. 1.1 tackles per game, 2.3 blocks, 0.8 interceptions, 2.1 clearances, and he was great in the air, 1.5 aerial duels won per game. So just an incredible piece there that they have added since the in that huge summer transfer window, and he is going to be their number 1 left back for a long time now. And he can just get better and better. I feel like there's even more that can be unlocked with Ben Chilwell, and I have no doubt in my mind that Thomas Tuchel is going to figure that out. He's just going to be a great piece, and he showed it this season. So Ben Chilwell comes in at number 8. At number 7, I have a player who looked incredible last season. I mean, he was easily the best player on this team. Probably the best player last season. And this season, hasn't really had that same impact. He's still having a great season, but it just goes to show you how many other players have stepped up from last season, which is why Mateo Kovacic comes in at number 7. Nobody controls the tempo as well as he does in that midfield. 2 assists, 91.2 completion percentage. The man barely makes an error with his passes. On 50 passes per game, he's got 0.7 key passes per game, and he also helps on that defense. He has 1.2 tackles, and he's a great he has amazing technical skills. 1.3 dribbles per game. He just knows how to control the ball. He knows how to get it to the right players at the right time, and he's just such a perfect addition to this team. When he was brought in from Real Madrid, not many people were expecting him to, really light it up, since he couldn't really show it up at Real Madrid, but he has shown that he can be, one of the key pieces for a midfield, and he's done it once again this season. He comes in at number 7. The only reason he's not higher is because there are a lot of players that have just had incredible seasons this year, including the one coming up next, who has had a huge bounce-back year. And one of my favorite players, Ningolo Kante, comes in at number 6. 36 matches played. He's got 3 assists and 87.2 completion percentage of about 44 passes. He's got 0.6 key passes per game. But obviously, when it comes to Ningolo Kante, the most that he gives to a team is his defense. He is one of the best defensive midfielders in the entire world. And there's a lot of evidence to that. When you look at his 1.8 tackles per game, 1.7 blocks, 1.9 interceptions, and he controls the ball very well, 1.1 dribbles per game. So he's a defender that you can, trust to control the ball, make the right decisions with him. And obviously he's not going to help a whole ton on the offensive end. But he still picked up 3 assists this season as well. So he's done a little bit of everything for Chelsea. And it was a huge, huge need for them, as he was obviously struggling with a lot of injuries last year. And the fact that he's back playing at a high level just makes me happy, because he is, like I said, one of my favorite players. He's just not good enough to get into the top 5, because there are some players that have just been incredible. And one of them is the one that's coming up next, who I never would have expected to be on this type of list. Because I just feel like he was always a background player. But Rhys James, I mean, wow. I mean, the way he stepped up this year and did pretty much everything that you could ask for from a fullback. 31 matches played, 1 goal, 5 assists. He was very accurate with his passes, almost 84% pass completion of 54 passes per game. I mean, to get that from a fullback, that's incredible. I mean, and obviously the 5 assists is huge. That's almost for the lead for the team. I believe that's 3rd on the team this year. He's got 1 key pass per game, 1.1 tackles, 1.7 blocks, 1.3 interceptions. So obviously he also helps on the defensive end. But the fact that you also get 1.1 dribbles, 1.2 aerial duels, he just seemed to do everything that was needed from him on a consistent basis every single night. That's why he has been able to become the consistent right back for this team. And he's going to be the right back of the future, unless obviously, he gets sold or he's bought out, whatever. But Rhys James has been such an important piece to this team's, to everything this team does. Whether it's an attack, defense, he has been that guy for them this season. And you're just hoping that, he's still a young player, that he just continues to develop and use this season as a trampoline to what we're going to see, just much better play from him in the near future. But yeah, number 5, we got Rhys James. And number 4, I got a very controversial player, but I feel like he's having an underrated debut season for Chelsea, Timo Werner. 39 matches played. He's got 10 goals and 8 assists. Now, I understand that when he came in, most people were expecting him to be, probably one of the best goal scorers in this entire league. But it is not easy to have a transition from any other league into the Premier League. It's not. There are some people that do it. Mo Salah had a seamless transition from Roma into Liverpool. But he was in Chelsea before, and he didn't play well then. And it's tough. It's not easy. But regardless of what people were expecting from him, he still had a very, very solid season with 10 goals, 8 assists to lead the team, no less. And I mean, he was just such a perfect outlet for anybody. I mean, the pace that he brought to this team, obviously his goal scoring prowess was still there. He had 10 goals. He was one of 3 players to have double-digit goals this season, and he does that with 0.6 key passes, a 77 pass completion percentage of about 23 passes a game. He just does those little things. He had, obviously there were some stretches where he just couldn't score goals, but he also had a hat trick in the Champions League. So you get a little bit of everything from Timo Werner, and I just think he's a little bit underappreciated, because many were expecting him to come in, especially after having that incredible season with RB Leipzig last year, where he had like 28 goals and like 12 assists. It was a ridiculous season from him. That's why, the fact that they got him for so cheap was just mind-boggling. But the fact that he was still able to work through those droughts and still come out with a pretty solid debut season, I feel deserves credit, and that's why I have him at number 4. Maybe for some people he'll go number 5 or number 6 behind guys like Rhys James or Ningolo Kante, but I have him at number 4 just because of the impact he put on that attacking end. And if it wasn't for him, they wouldn't have been able to score at such a consistent rate because of his ability to pass the ball. And of course, his ability to score at pretty much at any point. You just never know when you're going to get it. At least this season, you were never sure when you were going to get it, because there's sometimes where he just went on droughts and he kind of disappears in games. But he is still an incredible talent and deserves to be on at least in the top 5 of your top 10 Chelsea players of the season. At number 3, I got a very underrated defender, Kurt Zuma. Maybe people think I'm crazy with this pick, but I think Kurt Zuma was so important to what Chelsea was doing in that back line. He was the anchor for that defense and the main reason that they have had such a strong defensive season. I'm going to go down and say, maybe not, it was part of the reason. He was one of the key pieces. 4 goals also, like the fact that he was able to score goals, and not super consistent, but like early on, the way he was scoring, it kind of felt like a Sergio Ramos type of season. And the fact that he's also great with the ball at his feet, a 91 completion percentage of about 59 passes a game, 4.4 clearances. He was incredible in the air. He won 3.4 aerial duels per game. The man was just an absolute wall for Chelsea this season, something that many were expecting Thiago Silva to be this year, but there were a lot of mistakes from him. He was also picking up a lot of injuries because obviously he's getting up there in age. He's 36, but Kurt Zuma has stepped up and been a huge piece for this back line, and they're going to need him to be that for next season as well. So Kurt Zuma comes in at number 3 for me. At number 2, I have another new addition for this team, Eduard Mendy, the goalkeeper. What a steal this was for Chelsea. If they would have gone through a full season of Kepa, I'm sure all Chelsea fans would have pulled their hair out with all the drama that there would be. But bringing in a cool, calm, collected goalkeeper like Eduard Mendy, who also is just flat out amazing, was such a steal for them. Almost an 80% save, 80 save percentage. I don't know how I'm going to say that, but whatever. Almost an 80% save percentage. 20 clean sheets of his 32 matches played. 20 clean sheets. Think about that real quick. That's incredible. I'm pretty sure that leads the Premier League. This is actually in all competitions, but regardless, the man has been an absolute wall for them between the sticks. He's a huge upgrade. That's just plain and simple. He is a huge upgrade and is just an incredible pickup for them. And to me, is one of the most important players for this team this year. And if it wasn't for him, they would not have been where they are right now. Only 25 goals allowed in the Premier League. Yeah, that has a lot to do with what Eduard Mendy has been able to do between the sticks. And that's why he comes in at number 2. At number 1, I have the one and only, did you expect anyone else? Mason Mount. This has been building up for the past couple seasons. I guess the past 2 seasons. Mason Mount has been showing that potential, that he can be that go-to guy, the one that you're going to use every night. You're going to be expecting big things from every single night. And he has done it. 6 goals, 5 assists. Those aren't eye-popping numbers, but it's still what he does for his team on a nightly basis. 83 completion percentage of about 42 passes a game, 2 key passes a night, and then on top, 1.2 dribbles, so he also creates for himself. And on top of all that, he is a workhorse. He helps out on the defensive end, gets 1.4 tackles a game, 1.1 blocks, 0.9 interceptions per game. He does it all for the team, and he's mainly their best offensive player. Their best attacking player that's going to create for his own teammates, create for himself, and just make everything flow so much better in that attack. If it wasn't for Mason Mount, they would not be where they are. He is by far the best player this season. And like I said, man, it's been a long time coming for him because he has been showing, time in and time out that he's got that potential. This season, he's finally been able to tap into it on a consistent basis and be their best player this season. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. I hope you guys enjoyed this, this show. As always, you guys know I love bringing this content to you guys. I'm always looking to do, this more and more. But thank you for listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, I would really appreciate it. Thank you and have a great night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.